Wow.
Um,
So when I'm in California, right? And so we're like,
right.
oh, farm to table, farm to table. Farm to table has been done in Africa for how long?
For centuries.
Okay. So I
For
mean, now
centuries.
it was pick out of the garden, get onto the table. I mean, get in this kitchen so we can cook it, but it was always farm to table.
It was always there. It was always there. It was always there. But every another fond memory that I have is like we had 3 holiday breaks every year in school, and on all those 3 holiday breaks, my mom would make sure that her chickens would grow so that by the time we get to the holidays, we have enough chicken to eat over the holiday.
Mm,
So we would spend our first week of the holidays slaughtering those chickens, dressing them up,
mhm.
freezing them, so we have all that meat. Nothing is thrown away except the feathers because we can't eat the feathers.
Right.
So we're
Don't
eating the
want to.
intestines,
Good, but you
the
don't.
gizzards, the hearts, the chicken feet, the heads, like everything. And again, we talk about sustainability. Sustainability has always existed
Wow.
for us, especially Zimbabweans, because
Mhm.
even if you're growing your crops, anything that you discard, anything that is going off, it goes into a manure pit so that you can fertilize your crops. We didn't use fertilizers back
Mm.
in the day when I was growing up. We were using manure. You would make your own compost heap, and that's how we were growing our food. So this is what I preach about when it comes to Zimbabwean food. There's a lot of ingredients, wild and domesticated,
Mhm.
that we incorporate into a lot of our food.
Wow. I mean, not surprised, not surprised, but I just, it's like, goodness. We've always, and so, like I'm saying, growing up and now being able to connect with the diaspora there in Africa,
Right,
we see
right,
how, over here in the US that we do a lot of things because it's just in our nature to do it,
right,
in terms of
right,
using the eating, not letting anything go to waste, right? Like you said, you
right,
took that chicken and nothing except for the feathers was
right,
used. So
right.
I just love when you really look at that, just the similarities there. Let's get into your move to Ghana. What took you to Ghana?
Ghana. Whew. Ghana was always Ghana was always on my radar,
Hmm.
and I think I had a Ghanaian professor when I was in college, at Fresno State, and he really made Ghana sound so cool.
Mm,
He made Ghana the landing point for anyone who wants to have a pan-African view about life. And so Ghana was always on the radar. I had an opportunity. I was trying to move away from Zimbabwe at some point again,
hmm.
and I wanted to explore Africa because I wanted to be more in touch with different African cuisines. And so a friend of mine said, "There's an opportunity to be in Ghana. Would you take that?" And I quickly jumped on it. Um, in 2 weeks, I found myself in Ghana.
Okay.
I had an amazing job. I'm now running 5 kitchens, um, and a culinary school, 2 catering operations, and so it's really been a massive opportunity. Uh, it's also been a massive um, learning space for me because it's quite different in Ghana, as opposed to everywhere else where I've lived and worked, because Ghana doesn't have proper structures when it comes to hospitality, culinary arts in terms of the education side.
Hmm.
And so having to come and teach everyone that comes into my kitchen on some of the basics that some of the things that you get taught on your your first semester in college, in
Mhm.
culinary school, and having to teach and then have to also deliver exceptional dishes, products to these guests. It's really been challenging,
Mhm.
but above it all, it's been really fulfilling. When I look at Ghana as my second home.
Mhm.
A lot of people would probably think that the U.S. should be my second home because I lived there longer than I've lived here in Ghana. But Ghana is so culturally rich. Um, you when you go to Cape Coast, you feel a part of it. It's not just as a Ghanaian or West African or an African American. Just as an African alone, you feel the intensity. You see how they dance. You see their appreciation and love for their fabric, for
Mhm.
their food, for their language. I mean, I wish I was born Zimbabwean in Ghana because I would have been 10 times prouder of being Zimbabwean than I was.
Mhm.
But it's Ghana has really helped me a lot in stamping my African roots proudly,
Mhm.
and voicing that I am Zimbabwean proudly. I have people who want to introduce me as a Zimbabwean American, and I'm like, uh. I am Zimbabwean. Period.
Wow.
And so it's really been it's been a fulfilling journey to be in Ghana. And the last thing about Ghana is that Ghana will make you meet a diverse group of people,
Mhm.
from all walks of life. People I never thought I'd meet, people
Mhm.
that I never thought I'd cook for.
Right.
Um, Hollywood, football, basketball, uh, I've, like ordinary people, presidents,
Mhm.
people that you meet in the store. Like it's just been such a fulfilling experience. I'd never change it for anything. Um, Even if I was to move to somewhere else, I think I'll carry Ghana and the experiences that I've had for a lifetime.
Wonderful. That's just amazing because, and
Right.
I'm listening as I'm listening to your story as we're talking, it just seems like, everything was just flowing and ordered. You know what I mean? And once you, like you said, you got into alignment, then, you start
Right.
hearing and obeying or whatever you want to say, it just really continued
Right.
to grow from there. Are you
Right.
finding now that more Africans, whether they're Ghanaian, Zimbabwean, et cetera, are just really starting to be really embrace who they are and their food and cultures more, right? Because I've always talked to, different chefs over here in the US, and maybe they are first American, right? Whether they're Haitian, Ghanaian, whatever the case may be, Jamaican or whatever. And there is that American dream that you want to capture. And sometimes your culture and your language gets put to the side. But then as you're an adult, right? Then you come and you're like, wow, you really start to get into who you are. You really start to reconnect. Are you seeing a lot of that just going on of people saying, you know what? And then I also want to insert in there's those narratives that we know that have existed for years, right? Where people just not
Yes.
understanding the continent and putting their own negative spin on it. And so I'm just really seeing
Right.
people being really proud of their culture, who they are, and not making any type of exceptions of how they serve it on a plate or how they represent themselves. So are you seeing more of that pride in the culinary world there on the continent?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm pushing Zimbabwean cuisine through my brand Kandiro, but I'm not doing something that is brand new. There were plenty guys. There were a lot of guys who were
Mhm.
doing it before me who are still doing it.
Mhm.
And I'm just here to amplify it a bit more so that people are more aware that, hey, there's Zimbabwe, taking it to the globe. But you see, those narratives, they exist on both sides. Um, they were not created by us.
Right.
They were created by structures and forces that may be to stop us from the bond. That bond, when all forms of Black people get together with no prejudice, with no narrative attached to it, there is so much strength in that.
Yep.
And similarities in food across the African continent, they start from South Africa all the way to Egypt. And when you look at them and you look at the diaspora, when you look at the US, when you look at the Caribbean, there are similarities from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe didn't send any, well, not, let me not even send, because that's the wrong word. No one was forced out of Zimbabwe during the slave trade.
Okay.
It affected West Africa and small parts of Central Africa, but not Southern Africa. But when I travel and I was cooking in Colombia one time last year, and I was amazed at the similarities that we have with Colombian cuisine.
See?
And I'm like, wait a minute.
Right.
We have such a connection that my ultimate desire is that one day we forget these narratives.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who knows or who doesn't know what. That's in the past. What we need to do is really move forward. And that's one thing that I've embraced in terms of how I operate and do my personal branding, is it doesn't matter anymore who I may have had problems with in the past. What we need to do is to find common ground and move forward. And then you look at, for example, Alexander and Nina's book.
Yes, congratulations on contributing. It is the Contemporary African Kitchen that's due out in October. So congratulations on that.
Thank you for that one. It brings a lot of us together. It's not just about Africa, because you have contributors in that book who may be representing Zimbabwe, Ghana, but are also Americans. So they share space with certain foodways that are present in the US, certain foodways that are present in Europe and the Caribbean. And that book literally acts like a magnet, because as long as you are this kind of color or lighter, you are going to want to plug into and see what other countries out there in the diaspora cook.
Right.
And that's just an example of how we get rid of these narratives, how we all come together.
Absolutely. And to your point of, thinking what you may have heard about this cuisine or this chef or what this culture, whatever. It's just, this book is such a great way of unifying the diaspora, like you said. Let's talk a second about some of the pop-ups that you do.
Yes. Those have been fun. I think I burst Kandiro out of, and I have to be honest, because that's what I do best. I burst Kandiro out of frustration.
Okay.
I felt Zimbabwean cuisine was not represented strong enough. I felt that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing enough. I felt like I wasn't getting the support. And so I had just lost my mom, and I think I lost my mom a month before my birthday.
Okay.
And I was sitting there and I was like, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? Because I want to have a life that when I go, I will go and I say I did well.
Hmm.
I want people to say he lived a life where he influenced, he had an impact. Because that's what you've said. That's what you've said. That's what you've spoken over my life. And
Hmm.
so uh, I birthed Kandiro. Kandiro initially was still is a restaurant concept.
Okay. And may I ask what the name
Um,
means?
Kandiro means small plates,
Okay.
but there's actually a Shona, which is Zimbabwe, one of Zimbabwe's languages.
Okay.
There's a Shona proverb that says Kandiro kanoenda kunova kamwe, which literally translates to you give, you get back.
Mm.
Now, a lot of times when we hear that, it doesn't physically mean go and give somebody so that person can give
Right.
you. It means that out of your good deeds, if you keep on practicing these good deeds and you give goodness and you give riches and you give all the best that you can, you will get a reward.
Right.
It may not come today, it may not come tomorrow, it may not come even in the same way that you get it, but you're gonna get rewarded. The
Hmm.
blessings are on their way. So that's why I really wanted to take that part of the proverb, the Kandiro part, to also use um, to build community, um, to enforce a sense of culture, and to give what we can to everybody. And so the pop-ups have been really amazing. I've literally plugged into people that I've met, my network,
Hmm.
and asked and begged and knocked on every door that's possible. I'm some doors I haven't even knocked on yet. Um, but they've really allowed me to take culinary tourism to a different level, because most of the time when we look at culinary tourism, we're looking at people coming into a certain country, but it's not
Hmm.
everyone that can come to Zimbabwe to experience Zimbabwe. So
Hmm.
we're exporting Zimbabwe out, and we're letting you have a taste, literally have a taste of Zimbabwe through our pop-ups. And
Nice.
if you and by telling our story, by telling our Zimbabwean stories, and if you love what you hear, you're also going to feel like maybe you want to connect. We have so many other projects that are coming up that are aligned with the pop-up. We're going to start doing culinary tours. That we're lining up some culinary tours to bring in some of my U.S. and Canadian people to Zimbabwe, Ghana, but really just focusing on the culinary aspect. Um, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do these pop-ups. Uh, it's also giving me insights to how I would ideally want my restaurant to work and
Yes.
run. And it was so important for me to do my first inaugural pop up in Zimbabwe.
And when was that?
In
What year? When did you
that
do that?
was that was that was actually in May of this year.
Oh, okay.
Um, in the past, we were not highlighting what we were doing, but this was the first one that we literally said, we're going to put it out there. We're going to let everybody see what we're doing. And it kind of became the official launch for Kandiro. And
That's the video that we saw and shared, correct?
yes, that's the video.
Beautiful.
And it was amazing. It was amazing because it's the first time a chef has come to Zimbabwe and taken over a restaurant and sold out all the
Nice.
seats that were available. So it was a very proud Black moment, a very proud Black Zimbabwean moment. The support was intense to have some brands coming on board to work with us, and it was nothing spectacular. It was super spectacular because it allowed for people to see, a small number of people to see what Zimbabweans are able to do. And I know that I've got a lot of people who are looking forward to the next one
Yes.
and the others in the future.
Wonderful. Just curious, when that restaurant does come, are we thinking Zimbabwe or Ghana, or have you thought about where you want the first one to be?
Yes. Can I keep that a secret?
You can keep that a secret as
Yes.
long as we are among the first to know about the
Yes.
project.
Yes.
How about that?
It's really coming soon. Um, and it's really close to you.
All right. I love it. I love it. Well, besides, we've got restaurant in the making. What else
Yes.
are you working on, Chef, that you can share with us?
Kandiro cookbook is on its way. I started working on that.
Nice.
It's my third time trying to work on a cookbook. And it's strong. We also I've worked on a couple of other projects in the past, like a spice range. We also want to get into like I said, the culinary travel and tour. But there's really something big that's also coming towards the end of this quarter
Mhm.
that I will let you know
Awesome.
when it
Awesome.
happens.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, this has just been wonderful speaking with
Thank
you,
you so
connecting
much.
with you, and learning about your journey. And I think that's why I love doing these conversations, because you
Right,
learn so much about
right.
someone's journey. Oh, social media and a website can only tell so much. And
Yes.
so thank you for taking the time to
Thank you
share.
for having me, Cherie. I really
Ab-
appreciate it. And thank you for the job that you do,
Thank you.
connecting us.
Absolutely.
This is what you do is what uh, Alexander and Nina's book do as well.
Mhm.
Connects people, and it allows people to see everyone from a different dimension, from a different perspective. Because maybe I may know somebody who knows you, and their interpretation or their story about you, their narrative of you is completely different.
Right.
But when you get to hear someone speak, you actually realize, oh, wait, I should have listened to this one by myself a long time ago.
Right.
And so as I was going through some of your old podcast recordings, I was like, wait, I want to meet this one. And I listened to the next one. I'm like, I want to meet them too. I want to collabo with this one. I want to collabo with that. Wait, how do we get all of these people in one space at some point?
I know. Wouldn't that be just amazing? Hmm.
I'm giving you a task, Cherie.
Thank you, Chef Kuda. Putting me to task, huh?
We
Uh,
we need to get us in more spaces together, um, celebrate each other, talk to each other, understand one another. I that's always the lacking ingredient in what we do,
right.
is that understanding and
Because
seeing
if you're in a
from
kitchen with another
different
chef,
perspectives.
right? That chef is,
Mhm.
you guys are preparing a meal together, whatever. They're not going to be maybe all warm and fuzzy. They're not going to be necessarily, hopefully, nasty and mean. But at the same time, you're not going to get to know who that person is, because they're so focused. Y'all know how y'all chefs get, right? Where y'all be focusing on
Absolutely.
food. So focused on
Absolutely.
getting those details right. And so to be able to your point, step outside and break bread in a different environment really just sets a different tone.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I will think about my task and how I can make that happen. But in the meantime, definitely thank you again and congratulations on all your success.
Thank
And
you so much,
look
Cherie.
forward to hearing what this project is coming near
Yes,
soon.
yes. I'll definitely send you something soon on that.
Oh, and before we forget, oh my goodness,
Yes.
let's tell people where they can find you and how they can connect with you.
Oh, yes. So I'm available on most platforms, social media platforms. Chef Kuda Makoni is my handle, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I also have a website, chefkuda.com. Kandiro is also on Instagram as well as a website.
And
And
you
I
spell
think
Kandiro. Okay, there we go.
there we go.
Kandiro. Love it.
So there are many like Google will lead you to something that talks about me. And now we also have Cuisine Noir, which is also going to be like we'll also have a link to what we do, to me and what we do. And so do get in touch if for collabos, for anything, even just general information, catching up. If you want information on Zimbabwe, Zimbabwean cuisine, I'm your plug.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Well, again, Chef Kuda, thank you for your time today. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Cherie.
All
Thank you
right.
so
Take
much. It was awesome. Cheers.